Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. We will start in a few minutes. We're just allowing a few other people to join. So please bear with us for now. Thank you. Okay. I think others will join as we go along. I'm cognizant of time. Welcome, everyone, to our webinar. And thank you for attending. It gives me great pleasure to introduce myself and our team. My name is Wilfred Burupira. I'm with the ACRN, and I'll be co-hosting this webinar alongside a team in the background. But right now, I would like to introduce our Chief of Staff, Dr. Romina Mariano, who will walk us through what this expression of interest is all about. And then afterwards, we'll have some time for any questions and clarifications. So without further ado, over to you, Romina. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Wilfred, and thank you to everyone that's joined us today. We're really excited to welcome you today to talk about what we see really as an opportunity for us to all come together to reshape Africa's role in clinical research. So the webinar is really intended to engage with you, share our excitement, and show why you should consider joining the Africa Clinical Research Network. And fundamentally why this is about more than just the trials in themselves, but it's rather a focus on building out a new ecosystem within the context of Africa. So to kick off, who is ACRN and what do we do? So to start with our mission, ACRN's focus is really to establish an Africa-led research network. To provide some clarity, we are, of course, not the first site network. There have been many networks before us. We are leveraging that infrastructure as part of ACRN. But what we felt was that those networks were largely disease-specific. They were often donor-driven and externally led. And so what we really wanted to emphasize with the creation of ACRN is that it's truly Africa-led. So operations, governance, and leadership are all designed by Africans for Africa, and all the operations and leadership sit within different countries on the continent. We also want ACRN to span the full range of therapeutic areas. So this would include, of course, the important infectious diseases, but also expand into maternal and child health, oncology, cardiometabolic disease, and rare diseases. We know that there have been gaps in investment in Africa, and that in many instances, countries haven't established their life sciences industry as robust as in other regions. But just as in other countries, we have to make these deliberate investments in workforce development and infrastructure and really strengthen our foundations. And I think what's different today is the digital tools that we have available to us and other opportunities that enable us to really leapfrog some of the gaps that we faced in the past, so that we truly can endeavor to enhance Africa's competitiveness in global clinical research and support countries in developing that life sciences infrastructure. The digital bedrock really allows us to accelerate faster with trial management systems, analytics, regulatory intelligence, and even community engagement tools. But equally important in this dynamic is trust. Research has often been siloed, disconnected from economic growth, from STEM development and local priorities. And in some communities is still seen as extractive and exploitative. And so another primary focus of ACRN is really building trust across stakeholders. So we're working with governments, sponsors, researchers, and most importantly with patient communities. Because these strong foundations in engaging with all these important stakeholders is really the only way that we can deliver together impactful, ethical, and sustainable research. So the real mission of ACRN is not just to increase the number of trials, which of course is one of our primary goals, and we'd love to see in the next 20 years the less than 3% become 20%, but we'd really love to transform how research is done, and we'd like to do that together with all the existing partners in the many countries across the continent. So I'm sure that everybody will completely, agree with this slide and is already very close to these gaps that we have. But really the way we've come together, particularly in our sponsor engagement, is to think about why clinical trials cannot ignore Africa. What is the case that we're making as ACRN for why there should be more clinical trials? And this is just 3 of the main contributing factors that we've really emphasized in our discussions. Many high-income countries are facing enrollment crises, costs are escalating, average per patient costs in the US are exceeding $20,000 per patient. And there have also been traditional hubs like Russia and Eastern Europe, regions that 20 years ago were very similar to the position that Africa is in now, that really enabled themselves to become traditional hubs for clinical research and that have now been disrupted due to geopolitical conflicts. And so there's a gap in this enrollment crisis that Africa is uniquely positioned to fill. The next component is thinking about Africa's untapped potential. So we have 18% of the world's population, 25% of the global disease burden, but very few trials that are happening. And what we also know is that by 2050, 1 in 4 people will be African. And so it becomes critical for us to understand the safety, efficacy, and health outcomes in our populations. Past investments have, of course, built amazing platforms that we can leverage, largely in infectious disease. And as I mentioned, ACRN is really wanting to assist these sites in pivoting and support other sites in being able to contribute to this research happening across therapeutic areas with that focus on the high disease burden areas, including cardiometabolic and oncology. And then the final part is just thinking about what is the strategic imperative that we have at the moment and how can we ensure that Africa leads. I think for many years, research has been externally driven and sometimes disconnected from Africa's needs, but we're really in a position now to strengthen our own position within this landscape, ensure that what we're doing is relevant to our own health priorities, and make it competitive for pharma and biotech. By partnering across institutions, governments, and communities, we can really turn Africa into a globally competitive hub. And I think several African governments are already following the example of countries like Australia and Kazakhstan, where they are deliberately making investments into clinical research as part of their national growth strategies. And so that is something that we are focusing on as well. How do we build that life sciences ecosystem? So this is really, those 3 pillars is what we brought ourselves together around, and we wanted to think, why ACRN now, and what are the things that the trial ecosystem really needs? There are amazing researchers, incredible research sites. What is needed in order for us to really catalyze that, leading to more interventional clinical trials happening on the continent? So we, as I've already mentioned, looked at the bottlenecks that are existing in global clinical trials. We looked at Africa being under leveraged despite the strategic value that I've already mentioned, at our large and growing population, and really then started to think about how can we develop an Africa-led trial platform that combines clinical operations which are based in Africa, is supported by a robust digital infrastructure, and has embedded site support so that sites, regardless of the level of maturity that they're at on their clinical research journey, would be able to participate. But finally, what this is really about is innovation. So we really want to ensure that clinical research, when done well, doesn't just generate data. We know that. It raises the standards of care. It accelerates technology adoption and improves health outcomes. Participation in trials builds skilled workforces, and really that research infrastructure is the foundation of that life sciences ecosystem. So what we're really pushing to do is more than just test drugs, but really wanting to strengthen our health systems, with our specific focus being on how clinical research contributes to that. And by diversifying the therapeutic areas, we also ensure that Africa is not left behind. And so ACRN's mission is really to have a great and fair geographical distribution across the continent, and have those capabilities really showcased through the pipeline of studies that we're able to bring to our partner sites. So just to give you a brief overview of, how we have been thinking about our vision as ACRN, right now we have 5 studies that are active or in preparation. Those are across Nigeria, Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Zimbabwe, with 19 partner sites in those 7 countries. Our digital backbone is already live. So as part of one of our founding partners' contribution, ACRN has a partnership with Oracle, and we have our clinical trial management system, ETMF, and Argus, which is their pharmacovigilance tool, which are live and up and running. And we have eSource and digital trial tools that are also in implementation phase. We're strengthening our lab logistics. ACRN does have its own laboratory in Harare, but we're partnering with other labs across the continent for the studies that we're doing currently. We're hiring CRAs, developing SOPs, and embedding community engagement frameworks within the sites that we're working with. In motion, if we come to the second block, is really this EOI process, where we started initially very opportunistically bringing on sites based on sponsor preference, pipeline that we had for 2025. But now we want to strategically expand the network to be across 10 plus countries by the end of 2025, beginning of 2026. And really think about how we then add in benchmarking commercial rate cards, harmonizing SOPs across the network, and achieving a HOP accreditation in the process, such that ACRN and its network partners are all accredited and recognized by the global sponsors and industry partners that we're engaging with. And this is really just what we view as the beginning. What we're working towards, which is in the last block, is modular full service trial delivery, whether as an SMO or as an execution partner or sponsor delegate. ACRN is building out the capabilities to perform those tasks. And we're layering into that AI-enabled oversight and performance tracking, which we really think will also position ACRN as a continent-wide sponsor-ready platform for what we hope will be phase 1 all the way through to phase 4 studies. So this is just to give you a graphical overview of the sites and the countries that I mentioned. We have the 19 sites across 7 countries, which, as I described before, have been somewhat opportunistic based on capability, sponsor recommendations, and alignment to the priority diseases we had interest in this first year of ACRN being a site network organization. And now we are really progressing towards intentional expansion and really ensuring that we represent, as I said, geographic reach and therapeutic areas. So the way we've been bringing on partners is either as high-performing hubs. So if you're an existing site that can anchor regional activity, then that, we have an amazing opportunity for those types of sites to contribute to ACRN. But what we'd really love to do is then to be able to expand and include mid-sized sites where there might be strong institutional support and clinical trials are really embedded within the healthcare system, but even formative sites where there may be only 1 or 2 investigators today, but they have strong patient populations and would really be eager for the opportunity to start to participate in clinical research and interventional trials. And so we'd like to be able to help grow those into future hubs. So the diversity of the different types of sites and centers that we're working with is really for us to look at large institutions all the way to emerging investigators to make us a true continental network, inclusive and representative, and to be able to meet the needs of both the global health and industry partners. This was touched on earlier, but just to emphasize what ACRN's service offering is currently. When sponsors and companies think about Africa, they often think of it as very risky. And so what we've really aimed to do here is to de-risk trial delivery in Africa. The way that we are thinking about this is that, no one wants to be a headline for a trial that was done unethically. Every sponsor wants to be able to make sure that the data that they're generating can stand up to FDA and EMA standards. And that's exactly what ACRN is aiming to do with our own accreditation and with the support that we offer our network. So we are not functioning as a site in this specific capacity. We are really here to work with the sites and partners and provide that platform that de-risks the trial delivery. So we have our operational backbone, which includes site management, readiness and contracting, regulatory navigation, quality assurance oversight, and SOPs. We have our community engagement engine, which includes building trust, working with community advisory boards, but also social behavioral research and recruitment frameworks, and dedicated resources to support retention, particularly for long duration trials. And then finally, as I mentioned, a critical part, which there'll be a slide on again later, is providing the digital backbone that has often lacked. So the trial management systems, the AI-enabled analytics, and that real-world evidence, data collection and data sets that will bring transparency, efficiency, and quality to clinical trials. So ultimately, what we're aiming to do is give sponsors the confidence that trials in Africa can be run in an ethical, high quality, and registration ready way. And we are here to give the sites support in order to be able to participate in those trials across different therapeutic areas. So, we really want Africa to become synonymous with quality trial delivery. And we think that now is the opportunity for everyone to come together to help catalyze that. This is the slide that I mentioned, describing in more detail what our tech stack is. So it's our digital operating system for trials. Digital technology at ACRN is really at the core of how we operate. And we have a number of different technologies integrated into how we work as ACRN and how we would like all the trials and sites that we support to have the opportunity to do too. So we really believe that this digital infrastructure is Africa's opportunity to leapfrog. Just as mobile phones allowed Africa to bypass landlines, digital platforms allow us to bypass the outdated, bulky legacy trial systems. So we're not looking to reinvent the wheel, but rather create more efficient processes that we can kick off with and have our moment in clinical research where we can streamline barriers, cut out unnecessary friction and roadblocks, and show the world that Africa really can deliver data and trial quality that meets and even exceeds global standards. So our digital stack covers every part of the trial life cycle, from site selection, as you can see along the gray circles, through to the regulatory, feasibility, pharmacovigilance, and including, again, the community engagement tools too. And so we really think that fundamentally having a robust digital backbone will enable us to be competitive and credible in the global clinical trial space. And so by leading with technology, we won't be lagging behind, and we're really fully committed to ensure that we leverage every opportunity that we have as ACRN, such that digital innovation is the foundation of everything that we do. That brings us to the end of who we are and what we do. I will now go into what our site network strategy is and just briefly on the EOI process, and then we'll open up for Q&A and some discussion. So what we just wanted to point out is why we decided to create ACRN as a site network. So this really is, talking about all the people that we're reaching out to, including all of you on the call today, and why we think that coming together gives us a stronger capacity, will bring in more trials and enable faster contracting, and why us joining together and you joining on as part of ACRN will really enable us to change what the possibilities are for clinical research in Africa. Because the site network fundamentally means that you're not standing alone. So you're part of a structured group that shares standards, infrastructure, expertise. We'll have the opportunity for consistency, quality, and reliability across the different trials that we do. We also have collective strengths. So instead of fragmented and isolated research, we're connected, pooling expertise, benefiting from shared systems, and enabling regulatory support that is then coordinated through ACRN across the different countries. So for sponsors in particular, this is a huge advantage because they can engage with multiple trial-ready sites through a single entry point. And so the contracting and trial startup becomes more efficient and a lot faster. And that will enable us to have more opportunities and more trials coming through directly to the sites. Capacity building is another big key benefit. So as part of the network, there is the ability to have support in strengthening labs, pharmacies, data systems, and staff training. and fundamentally leveraging the experience of some of the high-performing hubs that are included in ACRN together with ACRN's own infrastructure and resource. The idea is that we really don't have to figure it out alone. The network grows and the expertise grows with it, and we leverage each other's expertise to ensure that we are truly having that big impact as a network itself. And finally, joining the network opens more opportunities to do more trials across therapeutic areas. So it's access to more trials, resources, and collaborations. For sponsors, it ensures quality, scale, and predictability. And for patients and communities, fundamentally improves their access to interventions, strengthens the healthcare system, and helps us build that trust in clinical research. So what we really want to do as ACRN is to make sure that the sites are not just included in the network, but rather that all the people that participate with us in this endeavor are positioned as leaders in global research. And so what we're really aiming to do, and I'm just going to move to the next slide, is just to provide a little bit of background context to say that, site networks are not unique to ACRN. As mentioned, there are a number of networks that already exist in Africa that we're collaborating with, but they've also become the norm in the US and in Europe. So networks like Velocity and IACT are showing that by centralizing contracting, unifying SOPs, and sharing digital infrastructure, they can deliver faster trial startup, more predictable timelines, and higher data quality. So looking at these international models also has supported the development of our model as ACRN. So by contrast, standalone sites often struggle. There might be inconsistent funding or low study volume, and this does lead to inefficiencies, and challenges can become acute when funding is fragmented or withdrawn. Sponsor engagement might be limited and fixed costs become quite high. So really what we're trying to do here is enable ACRN to provide sponsors with that predictable high data quality and the geographical reach. And the reason that we are building this model specifically for Africa is so that we can replace what is currently more of a fragmented one-off trial relationships with a unified sponsor-ready network. And that, as mentioned, we will have the geographic reach and therapeutic breadth and predictable timelines and scalable infrastructure to really make us globally competitive. So one of the things we wanted to emphasize on this call in the context of the EOI is that really ACRN is focused on diversity of sites. So when we speaking of the ACRN network, we don't just mean large academic hospitals or established research centers. Yes, those will be critical for the success of the network, but we also are including teaching hospitals, academic hubs, independent research units that bring infrastructure, subspecialty expertise, and experience in different type of contracting. But we also want to include, in addition to all of those, community and specialty clinics and even formative sites that might at this point be a single investigator with a strong patient base and commitment to growing their research. So the idea here is really that the ACRN network is represented by a variety of different types of sites, and that then what we establish from an ACRN perspective are partner sites where ACRN will be embedding more direct support and oversight, and we will really provide the end-to-end services to get them trial ready. And then the affiliate sites, which are the more established units that already have staff and infrastructure. And what we will be providing is the ability to receive a pipeline of studies, that efficiency in contracting, and really enabling them to then support smaller sites around them. So the ecosystem approach and the hub and spoke model is really something that we value in the development of ACRN. And just to reiterate, this tiering of our sites is not about matching, it's not about hierarchy, it's rather about matching sites to their strengths and needs, so that every site, whether you are a fully established site that has done many trials or you're that single investigator with a patient population and a cohort with needs, with an interest in doing research, that everybody has a place within the ACRN network. And so that we can really build an inclusive and representative network that reflects our diversity, leverages strengths, and really grows our collective capacity across the continent. So the purpose of the EOI, which we really hope that now you're quite excited to participate in, was ACRN wanting to drive inclusive selection, operational efficiency, and equitable expansion across the continent. We want it to be fair, inclusive, and transparent. We will categorize sites by readiness, geography, specialty, and infrastructure. But really, our goal is the equity and long-term sustainability. And so, as I mentioned, it's not a hierarchy of sites, but rather our vision is to have this ecosystem of different sites represented within ACRN. And the goal from our perspective is that we expand our current framework from the opportunistic sites that we are working with to really being intentional, to be able to be representative, expand our current pool to more underserved areas, and gain awareness of a broad range of sites that have the flexibility in the model and how they work, such that they can participate with ACRN. So the process is relatively simple. We have really aggregated data. We have reached out based on public databases, contacts, and records. Today, we are here in this engagement and awareness, hosting the webinar. We hope that for those of you that haven't already, you will use our online survey and complete it for your site, after which there will be eligibility screening. And then we will contact the sites to schedule a due diligence visit, in which case we have a well-trained site assessment team that will be coming in person to verify the self-reported data and to really help do a more thorough due diligence collection with you, and then finally moving into the selection and contracting process. The key domains that our survey evaluates is the clinical capacity and experience, patient access, pharmacy and IP management, laboratory capacity, community engagement, and then, additional information, site strengths, other certifications you may have, specific challenges that you may have that we can help you address. So we look at these domains. However, we're not expecting sites to tick every box. So this is not about selecting sites that are able to do all of this already. Yes, they will play a key role, but this is also about understanding where to invest, how to support, and how to ensure that we diversify Africa's research portfolio. So please do fill in our form, regardless of how many of the boxes you feel you may tick. We really want you to be part of ACRN and to reach out to us as part of this. So hopefully our enthusiastic call for participation will mean that you will be filling in your forms. The EOI and self-report review has opened. We will then be doing our eligibility assessments. We are expecting that October, November, we will start to plan the on-site due diligence, and that network onboarding and contracting, depending on how it all goes, may start as early as November, December this year, but it will move into the new year as needed. Again, this is really just to summarize the different types of components of what we would be looking for. And we want, as I mentioned, a balanced mix of different sites that will bring that diversity. So finally, to just look at what we consider to be the benefits of ACRN membership at this point would be the access to diverse trials across therapeutic areas, priority consideration for early phase studies, so really a dedicated focus on early phase pipeline inclusion and how we can start to have those first in human trials, bioequivalent studies, etc., happening on the continent. The operational and regulatory support, the data and digital systems, the training and capacity building, and pipeline development. And again, there's no subscription fee, thanks to our funders. But to sustain our long-term goals and to really ensure the sustainability of ACRN, we need to diversify our industry-sponsored trials, which means your participation across therapeutic areas is vital to the sustainability of ACRN. And so our vision is really to build the sponsor-ready platform, coming back to the original slides and where I started. We wanted to be Africa-led, quality-assured platform across therapeutic areas. We want broad participation. We want all the therapeutic areas represented. This is really about building a continental asset for Africa and for us to be globally competitive. And so as we close, I just want to bring this together. This is my second to last slide, but just to say that we're in the process of putting all these systems in place. We do have the active trials that we're already running, and as mentioned, are strengthening all of those systems that we've mentioned in this presentation around digital laboratory logistics and embedding the digital tools, developing the SOPs, particularly with quality accreditation in mind, and the community engagement frameworks. We're scaling very deliberately and strategically. So we are building a learning management system that will train and track staff across sites. We're creating a monitoring and evaluation unit to capture our KPIs and performance metrics. We're rolling out a structured quality management system. We're pursuing, as I mentioned, our AHOP accreditation and benchmarking commercial rate cards to prepare for the CRO operations that ACRN will offer. So, of course, this is really an ambitious goal, and that's why we're reaching out for partners to join us on this journey. And where we're headed is ambitious, but very clear to us. So, just to repeat, we want to be a full modular trial delivery model, whether as an SMO, a sponsor, or execution partner. We'll have a mix of in-house and outsourced services, end-to-end sponsor-ready platform for phase 1 to phase 4, and a scalable quality management system that embeds a culture of quality across all the sites and centers that we work with. And so the vision for the sponsor-aligned, quality-assured clinical research platform is really designed, from our perspective, to be both competitive but also sustainable. And so with that, we really excitedly invite you to build boldly with us, to be bold, to think beyond traditional models. This is an opportunity for you to co-create with us with purpose, strategically thinking about clinical research sustainability on the continent. We ask you to be collaborative, because this is really not about what ACRN can do alone, but what we're able to build together. We want to be imaginative, really think about the future of African life sciences. What are the new models we can implement, and what is our shared ambition? And finally, we really want to be part of Africa's growth story. This is not a short-term vision, but really a long-term vision for transformation. And so all I can say is please join us. We'll now end the presentation at this stage. I hope that you've enjoyed these few slides that we've shared, and thank you again for joining us today.
Great. Thank you so much for that presentation, Romina. Just to mention to those who've joined us that our CEO is unable to join us due to a flight conflict, but she's really excited that we're launching this next chapter of the ACRN. So thanks again, Romina. You've given us lots of time for questions, and how this will work is, if you can just raise your hand if you have questions. But we had 2 questions already in the chat and in the Q&A. So maybe as people think about what they want to ask and raise their hands, I've got this one for you, Romina, from Mark, who asks that, are we targeting university setups or hospitals or individuals with interest in research regarding registration?
Absolutely. So what I'm hoping we did get across, and what I'll just emphasize, is that really we're looking to build an ecosystem. So we are equally interested in all types of healthcare setups. At ACRN, we're really focused on the idea that embedding clinical research within healthcare systems is another model for improving healthcare and being able to strengthen the infrastructure and have better outcomes. So university hospitals, academic hospitals would form a critical part of that, but equally individuals with an interest in research that have access to certain patient populations, but would like the support in being able to do the research and trials, would be equally an important part of ACRN, particularly as we start to expand the therapeutic areas that we are supporting in, because that's what we'd really love to be able to see, is the priorities and disease burdens in the countries represented in the work that ACRN does. And so please, fill in one of those forms regardless of which category you fall in. As I mentioned, it's not a hierarchy of sites. We want geographic areas and therapeutic areas to be represented. We want passionate people who are interested in research, and we would love to have the academics and the university sites and state healthcare facilities included as well, because we think that's where there'll also be that, that impact to the healthcare system. So all of the above, please join us.
Thanks, Romina. Another question was from the chat from Nosiba, who's asking to say, I previously filled out the form but received no response, maybe because we're a new initiative. I can take that one, Romina, and let Nosiba know that we'll be in touch, definitely. So don't worry about that. Another question in the chat for you, Romina, from patients. It's how many sites are allowable per country?
So we don't have a threshold or number of sites that are specific to any given country. What we do imagine and what we hope will happen is that some of those higher functioning sites that have a lot of experience and have been doing clinical research will be able to then support other sites that have less research experience and really have that hub and spoke model within the country, so that we start to harmonize the way the support is distributed and we leverage the resources of the partners and affiliate sites within the ACRN network. But we don't have a specific number that we're trying to reach. I think it will also be pipeline dependent. In some countries, depending on the disease burden, on the interest of the partners that are bringing the studies to ACRN, we may need to then bring on additional sites within that country if large recruitment numbers are required. So we don't have a maximum number, but we are hoping, as I said, that hub and spoke model will mean that we can have broader outreach within each country using some of the more experienced partners in that region.
Great. Thank you so much. I don't see any other questions in the chat or in the Q&A. But just a reminder.
Sorry, Wilfred, there's one more question that's just popped up.
I was going to say, Romina, before you come in, I Absolutely. Put in a link to the survey for those who actually want to click on it. So the link is in the chat. Go ahead, Romina.
No, so there's one more here that is the UI only open to clinical personnel or others from data science or analytics. Absolutely open to others too. So, we recognize that clinical research is really a collaborative effort, and that the clinical component, while critical, needs to be supported by the data science and analytics. So teams that have expertise in those particular fields would be welcome to contribute to the ACRN network. And we'd love to be able to really, the data science and the analytics is something that I think is super exciting and will really make it a novel network. And so anybody with experience or expertise in those areas would be welcome to join us too.
Great. So I've got Tiaya from Cameroon who asks, please, what specific therapeutic areas or diseases are prioritized for upcoming clinical trials?
So ACRN is doing a scoping at the moment, looking at what's upcoming. Of course, in the near sort of short to medium term, it's really looking at the opportunities being mainly in infectious disease and maternal and child health. But we have dedicated teams that are working on expanding that, particularly looking at the cardiometabolic and oncology fields. So I think it will be sort of a duality of one, what is of interest for people to be doing in Africa right now, but then also as we build out our network and can present sponsors with the study-ready set of sites with patient populations that are adequate for those disease areas, that then will be able to do that matching with their priorities and encourage them to consider Africa. So I think naturally, just in summary, the infectious disease and maternal and child health are the first ones that have started to come through. But there's a lot of interest in expanding that, and we have a dedicated effort in order to do that. So I think to answer maybe a sub question to the question would just be to say, if you have specific expertise in a particular area with a patient cohort that you've been following, and you have the infrastructure to even start with an epidemiological study with ACRN looking at that, please speak to your expertise, because in as much as we want to be able to bring the studies and give sites opportunities, we also want to leverage the expertise that you have. So don't be shy in really putting out there what your expertise is, where you have the opportunities. And then, of course, we will consider how you might pivot into other areas if potentially there are no studies coming up in that particular area in the short term.
Great. Thanks, Romina. I'm just checking the chat. Something has come up. This is from Major Cindy. Is there a discussion around African traditional medicine trials? What about epidemiology or observational studies? These areas that ACRN would support, provided there's expertise in those areas.
Absolutely. Thanks for the question. So I think one thing to clarify is that ACRN in itself is not a funder. So when it comes to what trials we do, that is somewhat dependent on what the global health funders and the industry partners would be funding to run in the context of Africa. So we can really, branch out to see what the opportunities and possibilities there across all the different streams that we have in our business development initiatives. But it would really depend on that. So the exclusion or inclusion of African traditional medicine trials wouldn't be necessarily a decision that ACRN makes. If there are funding opportunities around a specific product, there's an indication and a value add to that ecosystem, ACRN will support that. We just don't have the ability to select what gets funded. But in terms of the observational studies and epi work, this is absolutely something that ACRN is looking into. Right now, we're working on the development of using some AI tools that we're working with an AI team at the University of Oxford on, thinking about how we can start to leverage some of the fragmented, either paper-based or EMR data sets that are available with the sites and partners that we're working with, and how we might be able to bring those together and really get a better indication, of disease burden, standard of care metrics, and then how from there we can start to bring in specific cohorts for better characterization that can then be really, study-ready cohorts. So just in summary, the first one, we will support studies. We just are unable to select who gets funded, but we are always happy to support investigators in applications for investigator-led research where there are opportunities. ACRN can also support in grant writing, protocol writing, etc. And so if there are those types of opportunities, please do reach out to us. And then in the EPI, absolutely, one of the core components will be the real-world evidence data collection and our ability to really have the data sets that enable digital tools and AI tools to be used.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. I have a hand up. Please, can you go ahead? Mangawa? Can you unmute?
Hi, Wilfred. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Romina, for the presentation. My name is Evan. I'm based in the UK, and I'm a clinical research physician, and I do support sites as well. So we do have some private sites that we work with. So knowing the landscape in some of the countries that you're working, let's say Zimbabwe, how are you managing to deal with sites that don't have electronic health records? How are you prepared to deal with such things? And of course, things like transporting samples between sites. I can imagine that some of the sites will be quite far from your main labs. How ready are you to deal with such issues?
Absolutely. That's a really great question. And I think it speaks to what ACRN came together thinking about right in the beginning. Was there's a lot of expertise and amazing work happening, but how can we start to address those logistical roadblocks and challenges that we face? So yes, I mean, I think the paper-based question is something that we're not going to fix overnight. We have teams that are currently have protocols in development for how we can start to bring those paper-based records into an electronic version using some AI tools to assist. We're currently working with ethics and regulatory teams for the pilots of those studies to ensure that they are all acceptable for the specific countries. And of course, in terms of data governance, data sharing, there's a lot of work that's being done to develop that framework because it's so critical that everybody has ownership of their data, that it can be used by the countries and sites and centers, and that we have very clear, transparent pathways in how it's shared. So in terms of how we're supporting sites, even some clinical trials at the moment still require paper-based documenting. So it's not to say that everything is digitized, right from the start. But what we will do is that we provide the sites with a digital infrastructure support to enable them to start to collect data electronically, and then in parallel are looking at how we can start to retrospectively look at their paper-based data sets to really leverage the information that they have there. So we have sort of multiple streams of work that are looking at how we do that. And that is still definitely a work in progress, as I mentioned, due to the complexities of dealing with sensitive data that we're working on to ensure that it's successful and that it really achieves the outcomes that we want to achieve. So that would be an area where we're really looking for collaboration and support if there are any kind of specific initiatives or tools or experience that you have. In terms of the second question from the logistics perspective, again, a very critically important component. So on the one hand, what we've done is we have, as part of our regulatory and policy data intelligence database, our intelligence database that we've set up, we're looking at all of the regulations, all of the policies that impact clinical research, but then also at anything that would impact import, export, etc., at a country level and at a regional level within the countries. But we've also, as a very, very new part of ACRN, just acquired a logistics company that we will be using to then further assist us with the IP, lab kits, etc., delivery from, depending on what studies we're supporting and where they are and what the needs are. So we are working with partners, but also developing, in-house support, specifically looking just at the logistics side of transport of specimens and lab kits.
Okay, thank you so much. Just a follow-up quick one.
Sure.
So suppose I set up a site, right away, everything being equal, I have staff and everything. How soon do you think you can, get studies of, running at my site, suppose?
Another excellent question. I don't know that I can give you, an answer specifically with kind of accurate timelines. Right now, we're building out our pipeline, so it would do for 2026. So the answer to that question would be ACRN is in discussion with a number of different sponsors and partners who are looking to do studies. What we would need to know then is, what is the therapeutic area expertise level and infrastructure of that site? And then we would be looking to see, which of the studies from the pipeline that we are building out would be appropriate for that site. So there's a few kind of caveats there that we need to work through: expertise, therapeutic area, existing infrastructure, how much capacity building is required before, say, an industry study could be done, if it might be more appropriate for a global health study in the first instance, or an EPI study. And so we'd really love to engage with the sites immediately when the specific study comes through is dependent on all of those different factors. But we're in building out our monitoring and evaluation and learning dashboard that our biostatistician is setting up. We're hoping that with time, those types of questions can be answered with more concrete data as ACRN starts to bring on partners and more studies.
Thanks, Mina. I've got a couple of questions in the chat now, so I'm going to limit your time. So from Kazata, hi Doc, how are you? This is the question: how much is ACRN affiliated or linked to NIH, and how much do you think this will affect the directions of studies of this group? That's the first question.
Okay, no, good question. So I will be brief, Wilfred. ACRN's support as a startup organization has come through the Gates Foundation and the Ellison Institute of Technology in Oxford. So we're not currently formally affiliated or funded by any of the US governmental organizations. We really want to be flexible and agile and reach that point of sustainability such that we are able to have the ability to kind of be immune to the types of things that have happened of late where funding can be pulled. So we're really hoping that, I think the effect of that has been dramatic and drastic on the continent. And we're really hoping that ACRN can leverage the investment and the expertise and the sites that had previously received funding that can become part of our network, and that we can continue to bring pipeline and studies to those sites. But I don't think it will necessarily impact the direction of what studies get presented to us. It may influence the types of expertise that currently exist based on what previous funding prioritized. But we're really hoping that this will be an endeavor where we're looking at building out the ecosystem and not being focused specifically on one therapeutic area, but rather being able to address the needs more holistically.
Great, thanks, Romina. I see here from Chieta Zimunu. She asks, is there a cost associated with joining the network should a site be selected?
No, there is no. So just to be clear, there's no cost, and we're a non-exclusive network. So joining ACRN wouldn't prevent you from being part of any other network. It wouldn't prevent you from working directly with sponsors or funders in particular, in instances if you are approached, and there's no cost to joining the ACRN network in itself.
Great. And then I have Aliyah from Uganda, who asks, do you require previous experience or are you open to new sites?
We are open to new sites is the short answer. Of course, having an investigator who's very interested in research is something that we're really looking for, but enthusiastic people that are looking to have the opportunity to kick off that clinical research and trial journey is also something that ACRN is really keen to be able to support. And I will say that in our experience to date, we have actually worked with a clinical trial naive site and supported them in being able to pass the site qualification visit for a specific study that they were approached for. So very much part of the remit of ACRN.
Great. Another question from Amal says, hi, do you need young researchers or any age group of researchers will do?
Any age group of researchers will do. We are looking to really create, as I said, a representative and diverse network, acknowledging that there will be researchers with vast experience with a number of years doing clinical research, and there may be some that are really at the very early stage of their research journey. And so we'd love to have both of those represented for the expertise that it brings, but then also for the sustainability element that it offers us, and that workforce development, capacity building, and bringing the experience to young researchers to really engage with clinical research and interventional trials is something that we're very focused on. So no age limits, no geographical limits, and no therapeutic area limits. We would really love to have a good representation of everyone.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think we're doing very well on time. Thanks a lot for that, Romina. And I have no further questions in the chat, but if anyone has anything to ask, a question just popped up from Yeleti. Can we have direct contacts to send questions after? Yes, no problem. We'll make these available in the chat as well. And then if there's anybody who wants to ask a question, you can just raise your hand and I'll allow you to unmute your mic and ask away.
While we wait for anyone with the question, I just want to mention that yes, if We will have a contact, an email inbox, which is dedicated specifically to this process. We'll share in the chat. And I'd also encourage you to go onto our website. There is also a video there with an interview with our CEO on the process. There's some FAQs that are present on the website as well. So there's additional information available online, but please do feel free to send any additional questions directly to us. And yes, absolutely. I see another presentation. Will is recorded and will also be available through our social media channels and website, and the email in the chat. So Wilfred, can I ask the team on that side just to pop all of that content in the chat?
Yes.
Before we close the meeting.
Before we close the meeting, it's in progress right now.
Fantastic.
They're typing away.
Great. Thank you.
I don't see anyone with their hand raised, unless I missed someone. No.
Fantastic. Well, I think while the team is typing up that content, then I will just take the opportunity to thank you all so much for taking the time to join us today. I know how incredibly busy everyone is, and we really appreciate you spending this hour with us. And we really, really hope that this will just be the beginning of a long, sustainable and exciting research journey with ACRN. We're really excited to work with you, and yeah, please fill in your forms and we will then be in touch soon.
Yes, thank you so much, Romina. Just to emphasize, thank you everyone for joining our webinar. We look forward to you signing up and us working together to really move the mission of ACRN forward together. And this has been a wonderful opportunity to see some old names and some new names as well. So thank you so much, and hope we can connect soon. So more information, we're putting information in the chat right now with my team. And I think that's it. Romina, did you have anything else to add? Last words?
No, all done on my side. Thank you, Wilfred.
Excellent. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for joining us today. This marks the end of our webinar. Thank you so much.